Welcome to another episode of Golden Nuggets Tea and Tales, Season 1, powered by Husby, served by Maria. Maria, you've got a nice little story to tell that tested your patience when it came to closing a deal.
Yeah.
What was that story?
So this was one of my stories. So I was trying to close a deal back in the days when I was doing Arabian ranches, and a client approached me, the buyer, and it was a lovely lady, lovely family. They were living in Germany.
Yeah.
Germany, and they were moving over to Dubai. They saw my listing online and loved it. So we did a viewing. Cut a long story short,
No, don't cut a long story short.
No, okay. Did a viewing.
We're tea and tales. We need the whole story.
Did a viewing. They spent a good hour and a half, looked around, absolutely loved it. They left, they came back, they brought more members of the family.
Okay, that's a key sign of interest.
Yeah, definitely. And more families came, more time. And they said, yeah, we want to put an offer. And I said, okay, great. But they wanted to meet the seller.
Right.
And I'm thinking, oh my God, this does not happen. You know, you never ever put a buyer and a seller together.
Recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And obviously I was trained that you never ever do that. You know, you keep everything separate.
But why is that? It's usually because it's such an emotive experience to buy a property, but also selling a property, you kind of feel like you wanna be involved in the legacy of this property that was your home. So there's so much emotion involved. It is a dangerous scenario to put a potential buyer with a seller.
Yeah. It's just
that's why everyone warns against it.
Yeah, and it's just not heard of here. I don't know anyone. I mean, with all, my friends that have done real estate or people that I've worked with, my colleagues, I've never really heard anyone say buy, seller together in a room.
But that doesn't happen worldwide. And that's why you need brokers to manage that in-between relationship. Okay.
100%. But my buyer was persistent, that no, they wanted to meet the family. Because as you say, it is emotional, especially for a woman to woman.
Yeah.
The owner of the property was a lady as well. So I just thought, oh no, like they're adamant, they want to. I wanted to close this deal.
Yeah.
I've worked so hard on this property.
Did the buyer say why she wanted to meet her?
No. The buyer said to me, look, I want to meet. No, actually she did, sorry. She said, we just want to get to know them.
What for? They're not going to be your landlords.
I think, you know what? I don't know. Energy? Is it energy? Okay. Is it they want to get the feel for it?
Right.
Is it maybe they think they can get a better deal? I don't know.
Right.
But, it's just something that's never, ever happened to me. They were quite adamant. So I said, okay, I will ask the seller if, the seller was quite a private lady. So I asked the seller and she was a lovely lady, very welcoming. And she said, yes, bring them in. It's fine.
Okay.
Came in. It was Saturday evening, 8:30 in the evening. I was like, bloody hell, 8:30. But one thing about me, I do work 7 days a week, Silvia, and I will do anything for my clients.
Yeah.
For me, that I'm passionate with what I do and it's all about providing a service, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not 9 to 5 clocking out and going home. This is not what we do.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a Saturday evening, 8:30, get there, meet my buyer outside the property. She turns up with her husband and another member of the family.
Right.
Walk in, the seller is there. She's got the whole of the family.
Right. Uh-oh, here we go.
Whole of the family.
Now you've got to earn your commission.
And I'm
Maria.
thinking, oh my God, I was like so out of my comfort zone, I was thinking, how am I going to do this? And I just thought, I'm going to be me. I'm not changing for no one, So we sat down, we started talking. We had tea. They brought out lovely cakes and everything was, lovely. Then they started talking about money, the price. They put an offer in. They said, well, we love your property and we want to make this offer. And the offer was 7.2 million. The seller looked, eyeballs nearly popped out, looked around. And then it was like,
Well, what price had they thought that they were coming in?
So the property was up for 8.2.
Right.
I told them that,
the buyer's interested at a certain level, or
I did tell. I was very honest with the seller and said, look, 8.2 is it's a stretch. They're open to. I did say, she asked me what, and I said we're looking to late sevens. They obviously came in
expecting late sevens. Yeah.
They came in at an offer at 7.2. Obviously, seller's face completely dropped. My head's going left, my head's going right. I'm thinking, next thing you know, they started speaking Arabic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And very
passionate.
Heated.
Okay.
Oh, no, I wouldn't say yes. I'd say passion. A lot of passion there. And I'm thinking, what the hell is being said here? Because I don't know what is going on.
Yeah.
That, both, they had representatives there. They were both talking as well. Two guys talking.
So you've got multiple conversations going on. You can't understand a word that's being said.
I cannot understand a word they're saying, nothing. And I'm just looking left, right, and I'm sitting there trying to be all pretty and I can feel my cheeks burning up, thinking, oh my God.
Did you try to stop it?
I did. I did to the representative. That there was a guy there that was representing the buyer, and I turned around and I said, look, I said it really quietly, I don't know what's going on. Can you? And then
he switch back to English, please?
Yeah, and he was just like, it's okay, leave it. We're, come back to you. And next thing you know, they just said, okay, thank you very much. They shook hands and said, right, we're going. That was it.
Yeah.
And it turned out they got up to 7.5 and the seller refused and said, no, thank you very much. Shook hands, and that was it.
Right. So
lesson learned.
There's lots of lessons here, but what was the main one that you...
The main one is never ever do that again.
Yeah.
Ever. Never. And
I think even if they weren't speaking in Arabic, even if they were speaking in English, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it is, because I'm not in control. As an agent, you're not in control. You're not in control with the buyer, the seller, nothing. That's it. It's just, So lesson learnt there, massive lesson is never do that.
Never put buyer and seller together.
Yeah.
Unless it's at the transfer office.
Yes, exactly. And actually, a friend of mine the other day was trying to do the same thing, close a deal. And I'm sure she's going to be watching this. And I said to her, don't do that. Just don't do it. And she had the same scenario. But lesson learned, never do that. Never, ever do that. Keep everything separate where you're in control. So I did learn that. But again, if I'm honest, I was trying to be nice, because I had a very, very good relationship with my buyer. And I had a very, very good relationship with my seller. So I was trying to, when they asked me, I thought, you know what, this is going to go really well, and I'm going to close this deal, and I'm, it's just going to be amazing. But obviously, no.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You just assume that everyone's going to speak in the same language, but you do get caught out sometimes, and it feels quite rude to say, sorry, can you speak in English, please?
Definitely, because that's their first language as well. And I guess they're more comfortable to speak.
Yeah.
And fair enough, I understand that.
But potentially they lost a deal because they tried to negotiate for themselves, which is always a recipe for disaster. But then the flip side of that is also not assuming people's languages, because, I've had a few situations where I've been cursing at someone or talking about someone in Arabic, thinking they don't know what I'm talking about.
And they do.
And then they respond in Arabic.
I know.
And I'm like, let the ground open up and swallow me. So
we have to be so careful, because we are in a land of lots of different cultures and languages. But
at the same time, it is a land of like entrepreneurialism, go-getters that probably would have multiple languages. Like you go back home, one language.
Yeah.
People would have done French or Spanish
and
GCSE.
Yeah.
They can get by in a restaurant in Spain. That's about as far as it goes. But you come to Dubai and you've got people that have multiple languages, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah,
so
very clever people.
And everyone kind of thinks, this is the French lot, this is the German lot.
No, it doesn't happen
and they
here.
don't. There could be someone that looks like me that can understand Arabic, German, French, Spanish. So you've got to be so careful.
You have to be so careful, And I think, for me, I think part of this job, real estate, is if if you're not learning, you don't grow.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that happened, because it will never ever happen again.
Yeah.
I'm glad it happened in a way that I learned so much. I learned a lot about myself, sometimes being too nice as well, and doing this Maria thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, you know. So, but I guess from 2 years ago when that happened to now, I'm a totally different agent and I'm a totally different kind of person.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Tel.
You're welcome.
Drop your experiences in the comments if you've ever been in a similar situation where a deal fell apart because you put the buyer and seller together, or has it ever worked for you? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. Interesting.